Welcome. Shakespeare uses the word turkey at least 5 times in his works, including several references to what he calls a turkey cock. Since it's Thanksgiving week here in the US, I thought it would be an excellent opportunity to explore what kind of bird Shakespeare was talking about exactly and to see if people in the 16th century would have known about or even potentially eaten the same kind of turkey that we have around our tables this time of year. Here's what I found out. Now, if you're interested in whether or not Shakespeare would have eaten turkey, I have a more in-depth video on that available on YouTube. I'll link to that on the screen and below this video so you can go and check that out. Today's episode is about exploring the arrival of the turkey to England and exactly what they understood the turkey to be. If you've seen my episodes on the unicorn, where it overlaps with the rhinoceros, you understand why understanding the history of the animal might make sense. The eastern wild turkey is native to North America, and this kind of turkey is actually one of 6 types of turkeys that naturally live all across the U.S., from the eastern seaboard all the way through the Midwest. Reportedly, Benjamin Franklin even suggested the turkey should be our national bird because not only are they native here, but he felt that they were extremely smart. I've since learned that that story might be an anecdote as opposed to historically verifiable, but still it speaks to the native nature of this bird and how prolific they were in this part of the world at one time. Now, the turkeys may not have gone on to be the national bird of the United States, but Massachusetts did name the wild turkey as their state game bird in 1991. So there's a little bit of justice for Ben Franklin in that, I think. Turkeys were prolifically eaten for their meat in North America, particularly at celebrations. In the European colonies, they would bring the turkey out anytime there was something to be joyous about. For example, at the wedding of Governor William and Alice Bradford in 1623, Osamequin brought a turkey in addition to 3 or 4 bucks to the celebration. Turkey feathers are still used by Indigenous women today from North America in parts of their garments and other artwork. Before the Spanish arrival in Central America, the Aztec people had long been breeding the ocellated turkey. Now, this was considered a delicacy for the aristocracy. But the first mention of turkeys making it all the way across the pond and arriving in Europe appears to be a 1511 letter from King Ferdinand of Spain requesting that turkeys be sent from the West Indies to Seville, Spain for breeding. So, with all of this going on with turkeys, when did they actually make their way to England, where Shakespeare was? Well, that date gets difficult to nail down precisely, but some facts that we can know about this time are that around 1520, William Strickland was a member of a transatlantic expedition, and he would go on to adopt a family crest, specifically requesting that his crest feature the turkey. Now, this has been suggested as potentially the first visual depiction of the turkey to happen in Europe. And as for additional evidence that turkeys were in England for Shakespeare's lifetime, there are butchered turkey bones dating to between 1520 and 1550 that were found in an archaeological excavation beneath the modern city of Exeter. They uncovered these in 1983, but research has been going on with these bones since then. And we actually have a podcast episode on that Shakespeare Life where we talk with one of the modern researchers that are looking into the background of these turkey bones and what that means for the arrival of the turkey in England for Shakespeare's lifetime. You can check out that podcast episode at the links on the screen or below this video. By the mid-1500s, we start seeing turkeys show up on English holiday tables. There's a man named Thomas Tusser, who was a poet writing in the 16th century, that names a, quote, well-dressed turkey alongside other popular Christmas dishes like beef and capons and even minced pies. A lot of the cookbooks of the period treat poultry recipes as universal. So anything that you would do for a chicken would work for a capon, would work for a turkey. And this is all kind of thrown together. But toward the end of the 16th century, so we're talking like 1590s here, the dedicated turkey recipes start showing up. A few examples include A Booke of Cookery, which was first printed in 1584. It includes directions for how to make a sauce for capons, but it adds that it's either for capons or turkey fowls. And it goes on to even list how to bake turkey fowls. So obviously they were cooking turkey specifically around this 1580s, 1590s timeframe. Now, around this same time, Thomas Dawson's book from 1585 called The Good Huswifes Jewell offers a recipe that says, to bake a turkey and take out his bones. Gervase Markham has a sauce for a turkey that appears in his cookbook. So at some point, they start recognizing the turkey not only as something good to eat, but something helpful and specific. You know, you have what you do for your chicken, but then you also have what you do for your turkey. Now, many people ate turkeys in North America, and colonists would reference wild turkeys as being prolific. In 1634, one writer even said that you could see as many as 100 turkeys spread out in any one place at the same time. And people who visited the original Plymouth colony wrote about turkeys as part of their description of the colony. In addition to deer, turkeys were very likely one of the birds cooked and eaten at the first Thanksgiving because eyewitness accounts of the event talk about men going fowling to prepare for their festivities. And remember, a turkey was considered a type of fowl. William Bradford writes about the turkey being plentiful, and then he later writes about how their population decreased due to overhunting. So not only were they plentiful, but they became extremely popular. And people hunted them almost too much because they wanted to eat them that much. Turkeys were so popular by 1672 that one writer records that despite being able to remember seeing many turkeys in a group in the woods in a past visit, in his present reality, it was very rare, that's his words, very rare, to see a turkey out in the wild. This same writer talks about how Englishmen are choosing to raise turkeys on their own rather than hunt them in the wild. Well, so why are they called turkeys, though? Why do we call them turkeys? Well, it's about the country of Turkey, but only tangentially. You see, there was a turkey hen that was imported via the Turkish trade routes, but this was known today as a guinea fowl. It's somewhat visually similar to the wild turkey of North America, but it's not nearly as large, and it doesn't have this grand feather display in the same way as the wild turkey. But the Ottoman Empire was massive and extremely powerful during this time period, and there was a lot of trade going on with the Ottoman Empire, and there were turkey cocks and turkey hens, both thought to be references to the guinea fowl that was happening during this lifetime. And we have a lot of reason to think that when Shakespeare uses the phrase turkey cock in his plays, he is talking about a guinea fowl. But it's also possible that any bird or that was new or exotic or showing up on their shores from somewhere far off would have been called a Turkish something or other because there was so much import of new and exotic things from the Ottoman Empire that it almost became an assumption by the English that if it's new and exotic, it must be from Turkey. So this was kind of the way that they would just offhand name things, whether that was the reality or not. So what is our conclusion to our overall question here? Did Shakespeare know about turkeys the way that we think of them today? And I'm going to leave you with a probably. It's probable that he knew about the wild turkeys from North America. That was a big thing. There was a lot going on, lots of ships going to and from in his lifetime. It's plausible to think that they brought that back. It's also probable that when Shakespeare uses the phrase turkey cock in his plays, that he's either referring to a guinea fowl or that the guinea fowl and the North American wild turkey were interchangeable for his lifetime. But either way, yes, Shakespeare knew about the turkey that we use for Thanksgiving in the US, and it's entirely plausible that with all the aristocratic tables that William Shakespeare would have been privy to in his role with the king's men, that he even could have eaten a turkey. It probably wouldn't have been standard for his station, like in his family home in Stratford-upon-Avon. They probably would have had a goose or mutton in terms of their family meal. But it's entirely possible that at some of the higher level places that Shakespeare was privy to, would have dined at, would have observed dining banquets happening at, that he had definitely seen and come across the turkey and even had a chance to try some at one point or another. If you'd like to know more about the history of the arrival of turkeys to England, I did mention our podcast with Marlene Lauritsen. It's episode 31 of That Shakespeare Life, and remember the link for that is below this video. You can access the podcast completely for free at CassidyCash.com/episode 31. And if you'd like to see the archaeological evidence, the pictures from the dig, as well as some of the primary documents that went into her research, make sure you join us inside That Shakespeare Society, where all of these visual extras are stored. And again, the link for that is CassidyCash.com/episode 31, and just look for the sign that says That Shakespeare Society to access all the extras. If you enjoy the history of William Shakespeare, please like and subscribe to our channel because we're here every week with more Shakespeare. Thank you for watching. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.